Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to the May 1st regular meeting of council. The city of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. Council will start off with the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the special council meeting held April 12th, 2023, the minutes on the council meeting held April 17th, 2023, and approval of the council meeting agenda. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? That the consent agenda include the following recommendations be approved: that the minutes of the second special council meeting held April 12th be adopted, that the minutes of the council meeting held April 17th be adopted, and C, that the May 1st, 2023 council meeting agenda be approved. Got to have a mover. Moved by Councillor Wood. Seconded by Councillor Martin. Any errors, omissions, any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. And I'm just going to address recognize Councillor Beal. We see you on your Zoom connection. You're coming in and going off. Do you have access to the hand up position on your Zoom meeting, or are you just putting up your hand physically, because sometimes you're disappearing off my screen? I'm not hearing you. Are you muted, Councillor Meal?
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Mayor and everyone. Sorry, I had just had a little trouble. It disappeared and then it's back. And no, I don't seem to have the little hand. So if I don't find it, I'll just put my hand up. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And if I don't see it, you're unmuted now, so it works out fine. So you can just say, hello, it's me, and I'll recognize you at that point if I don't see your hand. Thank you. Presentations. We have one presentation today from MNP LLP, audited financial statements for year ended December 31st, 2022. A presentation by C. Vanderhorst of MNP LLP of the city's audited financial statements for the year ended. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to the council for inviting me here today. Well, one of the steps every year is to go through your audited financial statements. So I have a short presentation and then I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end. I'd like to start off with a big thank you to Jetta and Marley and Kiva and the rest of the staff for helping us with the audit process. It goes very smoothly. Get this going. I've got Zoom control, but not the slide deck. Thank you, Amanda. So I will start by taking you through some highlights of the financial statements for 2022 and talk a little bit about the audit process and audit findings, and then come back to some numbers at the end to look at some financial analysis. So the first slide that you've got here is the statement of financial position, what we would also call the balance sheet. Here a snapshot of what's in the accounts at the end of 2022. So you can see the city has cash and investments of $73.7 million. If you add in the receivable balances that also existed at the end of the year, you get a total financial assets of $77.8 million. Debt being carried by the city is being paid down on schedule. It's $5.1 million at the end of the year. And if we add in all the payables and other amounts owing at the end of the year, you get a total liability number of $31.6 million. Subtracting the liabilities from the financial assets will give you what we call the net financial asset position. So sort of the liquid position of the city of $46.1 million. And you can see an increase there of over $5 million from the prior year's position. The tangible capital assets being managed by the city, so road, water, sewer, buildings and equipment and all the infrastructure has increased from $198 million to $206 million. That is what we call a book value of those assets, the historic cost over time as purchases were made and acquisitions happened, and then we depreciate it to estimate the usage of those assets. And the last number is accumulated surplus of 252 million. I will get into that number in a future slide. The next slide is the statement of operations or income statement. So you can see on the far left there, the total revenues for the city of $41.1 million, up from 32.8 in the prior year. So a few things causing that increase. There was significant donated assets with some of the developments, private developments being wrapped up during the year when the developer puts in the road, water, sewer, and other infrastructure. When they're done that bit, they donate it to the city to manage for the future. So you see an increase there of about $6 million in that revenue number. In addition, there's some significant grant funding being used in 2022 for some of the capital projects. On the expense side of things, $28.2 million for 2022, an increase from 2021, but still you can see under budget, where budget was $32.8 million. So at the end of the year, we have an accounting surplus of $12.8 million. Next slide, please. But to unwind all the accounting adjustments that go into that annual surplus number, next statement I'll draw your attention to is the statement of cash flows. So this is more in line with how you're thinking when you're looking at budget. This is actually what's going in and out of the main bank accounts. Operations of the city had a net cash inflow of $11 million. There's $5.9 million of capital spending for various projects throughout the year. An amount of $671,000 was transferred from investments into the main bank account. So that's a net of the ins and outs on the investment accounts. And then debt, as I mentioned, being repaid on schedule, $223,000. So at the end of 2022, the main bank accounts had a $5.5 million cash inflow. I promise I'd tell you what's in that accumulated surplus number. So working actually from the bottom up, the $252 million, the majority of that is what we call the equity in the tangible capital assets. So that's the value of the physical assets on the books minus the debt. So that $200,945,000 is not cash in the bank accounts. That's the value of physical assets. There is an unrestricted surplus balance of 30.5, so a minor increase from the prior year's $28.6 million. And you have what we call restricted surplus or reserves set aside for future projects of $20,693,000. So shifting away from the financial statements, then talk a little bit about our audit and our audit results. Happy to be providing another unmodified opinion on our audit this year. That's audit language for a clean audit opinion. We are satisfied that the financial statements that I just went through are prepared appropriately in accordance and in all material respects in accordance with the appropriate accounting standards for local governments. Ready to sign the report. The last step is council approval here today. So when we do our audit, we do look at the controls in place at the city to make sure that you're getting accurate financial reporting. We sample transactions throughout the year to form our audit opinion. We don't look at every transaction. That's just not cost effective. Again, another thank you to all staff throughout the city. Finance department takes most of the load for the audit process, but also we're talking to the other departments as well. I do have to confirm our independence. So as an audit firm, we didn't do any other projects or work with the city that would impair my ability to give you an independent audit opinion. And that covers from January 1st, 2022, the start of the year we were reporting on, all the way through to today, May 1st. And then I'll wrap up with a couple slides going back into the numbers. So I started off just looking at 2022. That was the year under audit. We like to look at some financial analysis, look at the last 4 or 5 years and see if there's any trends in the finances. So we start with this ratio that we call sustainability ratio. And here there's a magic number to this ratio, and that's a ratio of 1. If this ratio is above 1, it means you have financial assets available to pay for future projects. If it dips below 1, it means you are taxing or raising rates in the future to pay for the past. So for the city, it has fluctuated this ratio for the last few years. You can see if we go back to 2019, 2.25, up to 2.37, down to 2.25 again, and up to 2.46 for 2022. So representing cash and reserves on hand to pay for some future projects. And the last ratio we'll look at, we call the flexibility ratio. So here we're focusing specifically on the infrastructure and the capital assets the city's managing. We look at what a rough calculation of the aging of the assets. So we take the depreciated value on the books, compare it to the original cost. And this doesn't factor in condition assessment reports on the assets or when they would be coming due for replacement. It's just looking at how old they are from a financial perspective. So the carrying value is 71%. It's consistent with the prior year, 71.4, and it's been hovering around that low 70s number for a few years. So the important number, the important takeaway on this one is the fact that it's consistent, right? You're not seeing a trend down, which means a lot of aging assets, or trend up, which usually happens when you've put in a lot of capital spending on the books in recent years. So it's consistent, it's holding steady. And as you saw, there was almost $6 million of capital spending throughout 2022. I'll pause there. I would be happy to answer any questions from council.
Any questions from council? Councillor Grens?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to our delegation for the presentation, and thank you to our staff for making the delegation's job as easy as possible. So I do have a couple of questions with regard to those two final numbers you presented that kind of indicate the health of the books. Do you have any sort of reference point in terms of where the ratio and the second number, I'm not sure what you call the second one, where that would stand relative to our peers elsewhere? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I'll go back to the first one, the sustainability, that 2.46 number. Most communities that we work with are hovering somewhere between 1.5 and 3, I would say. If you have a lot of cash put aside, there's a balancing act there to how much cash and reserves you're holding. Definitely a problem can happen if you start getting into the negative below 1 or getting below 1 and you're having to raise taxes significantly. So there's a fine balancing act there, but most of the communities I work with, somewhere between 1.5 and 3. So you're kind of in the mix there. The other ratio was the aging of the assets, and most communities that I'm working with are in the 60s, some are in the low 70s. To be any higher than that, you have to be, quite frankly, a lot newer. For example, Landsville's fairly new as a community, so the ratio is a little bit different because of just the age of the community itself. So yeah, the mid 60s to low 70s, which puts you right in the sort of middle of the pack there for the communities that I work with. Thank you, Councillor.
No further questions from council. Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the city of Parksville's audited financial statements for the year ended December 31, 2022 be received for information? And part 2, that the 2022 audited financial statements be accepted as presented and approved. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Grens. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you so much. We have 2 delegations today. The first delegation we have is Mr. Martin regarding idle-free zones. Presentation from Mr. Martin to request the implementation of idle-free zones to prevent motorists from idling vehicles within the city boundaries. Mr. Martin, you have 10 minutes for your presentations. Thank you for coming.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I just wanted to bring this issue up because I think it's falls hand in hand with many of the initiatives around the country, indeed around the globe. So first, just to introduce myself, my name is Kevin Martin, and I live over on Bellson Street here in the city. Been here for about 2 years or so, and volunteer in a number of different organizations. Parksville Beach Festival, the Outdoor Theater, the Oceanside Community Safety via the Keeping in Touch program, which keeps seniors and those that live alone safe. The Red Cross and the Personal Disaster Assistance Team. And as well, I've been very involved with this cellular proposal for a new tower on the outskirts of the city between us and French Creek. And many of those different volunteer activities I'm involved with really have a focus on keeping Parksville safe, but as well keeping it clean. And that's where my focus on idle-free zones comes in. I just wanted to first just read the email that I'd sent to council. I don't know if you'd all seen it, so I'll entertain you with just a the first paragraph that talks about why I feel it's necessary. So as vehicles are being driven, granted, there's always going to be a carbon footprint issue. However, while some of those vehicles remain stopped or parked, and I'm talking mainly about those that are in parking lots, not those that are just stopped at intersections, there's absolutely zero need to have them running. Indeed, many of the vehicles these days are EVs, certainly have no carbon footprint or minimal. And a lot of vehicles now actually shut down at intersections. And then when you put your foot back on the accelerator, the engine starts back up and off you go. But many of these drivers that leave their vehicles running, they're listening to their radio or their stereo, perhaps running a heater or the air conditioner in their vehicle. And again, a lot of those vehicles stopped at the side of the road, stopped along the ocean, different parks, places like that. And frankly, they don't need to have their vehicles running to enjoy some of those things I just mentioned. In case of music or adapter ports for your phone, they're all active when the vehicle has their ignition in that accessory mode versus the engine running. And the draw on the battery is minimal, so there's really zero need for that vehicle to be running. In the case of heaters or air conditioning, the issue can be addressed by either raising or lowering one's windows. And the issue of warming up one's vehicle is now outdated thinking. Indeed, manufacturers would say that a vehicle does not need to be warmed up. People that warm them up are doing that for their own comfort versus the need of the vehicle and protecting it by making sure that oil is warm and circulating accordingly. So there's a bunch of different reasons why people might try to justify why they need to run their vehicle, but most of them really don't hold water. And indeed, while they're pumping carbon monoxide into the air, that carbon footprint is growing, and it's something that I think everybody around the globe is trying to reduce. Certainly in British Columbia, there's a lot more focus on it than in many other provinces across Canada. Indeed, maybe more focus here than a lot of places. We're not quite to where California is, but frankly, I think having that kind of a reputation for low emissions and all of that sort of thing is not a bad reputation to have. So again, I'm talking about those folks that tend to run their vehicles when they're at grocery stores, when they're picking up children from school is a big one, warming up their vehicle when it gets really cold here, all the way down to like maybe -8, not very cold when you consider some areas of the country. And indeed, those that are running up and down the road over on Community Park and spewing carbon monoxide everywhere. So really, they don't need to be running for doing a lot of the things that people do. I don't know why. There's a bunch of different myths out there. Again, I talked about warming vehicles up and the fact that many would say that you have to have them warmed up before you take off, otherwise you cause issues, and that's simply not true. I'm reading some of these myths from a website called Idle Free BC. And indeed, there's a lot of other ones out there that have got a lot of really good information. I did not fact check what I'm reading to you now, but this is off of different websites like those, as well as the city of Chilliwack, who I think have just fairly recently gone. I put a bylaw in place to have idle-free zones. In fact, I think it's idle-free across the municipality there. So, some other things. The fact is that the average vehicle with a 3-liter engine, every 10 minutes of idling costs more than 1/4 of a liter in wasted fuel, approximately 0.6 of a kilogram of carbon dioxide. So, you get a lot of cars. We have a lot of cars in Oceanside. And I think that with the number of municipalities and cities around the province, we would certainly not be leading the way. There's, I think, 16 in BC alone right now, in the Lower Mainland, places like Prince George, Chilliwack, a number of other ones that I could rattle off to you. But there's a number of them that have got idle-free zones in place and an idle-free bylaw in place. And the intent, of course, is to reduce those carbon emissions. So I see a lot of cars idling. Indeed, a lot of different cities have put when they put the policy in place or the bylaw in place, there's a lot of fleet savings to be had when it comes to fuel costs. I read some of those. I won't quote those to you, but it's not insignificant. And I just think that it would be prudent. I think that it would show that Parksville is committed to reducing our carbon footprint. I reached out to try and have a discussion with Jetta Holmes, who, as the Director of Finance, understand that he was involved in putting forth a response to a survey that was done last summer. And there's a number of things in there, but a lot of the spaces were blank. And I think that, again, with a little more focus and help from the provincial government, some of the other grant money that's around, I think if we launched a program like this, I think that it would gain support from the people that live here. Again, BC having, I think, the highest adoption rate of EVs of anywhere in Canada. And there's no question that people here think green. I mean, I think that they would welcome this idle-free scenario. And I would really like to see a little bit more focus put on that. I know there's challenges in enforcing such a bylaw. I think every bylaw we have has challenges in terms of enforcement. But I think with the proper publicity campaign behind something like this, I think that people would start to buy in. And I think it's just one more way that we can make Parksville a very beautiful place and a safe place to live. And I think that we could all be pretty proud of our own contribution towards reducing climate change. So I think I'm probably over. Oh, I'm not. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, a minute. Yeah.
I really didn't have a whole bunch else that I wanted to say. So thanks very much for your time. I really appreciate it today.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Martin. Is there questions for the delegation from council? Councillor Gore.
Thank you, Mayor, and through the mayor to Mr. Martin. Thank you for this presentation. I was doing my own research on the weekend about some of the idle-free cities in BC. So thank you for bringing this to the council. I was wondering if you are aware, since you already mentioned about enforcement, what has been the experience of those cities when it comes to compliance and enforcement?
Well, I guess I started looking at some of these other municipalities and what their experiences have been, but I wasn't sure what kind of reception I would receive coming forth to make this presentation, and I didn't want to invest a huge amount of time researching all of that just yet. I'm happy to get more involved in any capacity to try and move this forward, but yeah, I guess the long answer is I'm not sure what their experiences have been.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. Through yourself to Mr. Martin. I love the idea of an idle-free zone. I love an idea that we're all driving electric cars. I love an idea that we're, not digging for more lithium and other heavy metals for the batteries for those electric cars. What I think about when I listen to the presentation is that it would look great for us to say, hey, we're an idle-free city, but what does that mean though? And how do we enforce it? How much do we want to spend to enforce it? If someone has their vehicle pulled off on the side of the road in the wintertime and it's idling, do we want police or bylaw to go over and talk to them and tell them to turn off their vehicle? Maybe they're charging a phone or maybe they're staying warm. I just see a lot of logistical problems in telling other people when they need to turn their vehicles off. I love the idea, and emissions from cars, I think, are 11% of Canada's carbon footprint, and anything we can do to reduce that would be great. Sitting here on council, though, I just wonder how it's logistically possible to do it in a way that actually makes a difference, instead of just us saying, hey, we're an idle-free city. Yeah, but what does that mean? And so that's kind of the thinking that goes through my head when I listen to your presentation. Thank you.
Can I comment?
Absolutely.
So I can certainly acknowledge the challenges with enforcement. In fact, I think what when bylaws are introduced, or different initiatives are introduced, I don't think that anyone wants to come out wielding a stick. I mean, it's always better to try and use sugar versus vinegar. Some of those other expressions that I think really apply here, because the one thing that I think that I can say about people that live in Oceanside is that they're proud to live here and they're proud to do their part. It doesn't matter if it's volunteering or, cleaning up along the ocean or, assisting a neighbor, whatever it is, people want to help. What I would hope for out of what I'm suggesting today is that there be, some just enlightenment around the notion of idling your vehicle when there's really no need. I think if people are made aware and if there are different statistics that get quoted so they really can see factual data about how they contribute to this thing called climate change, then I think everybody wants to do the right thing. I shouldn't say everybody. Many people want to do the right thing. And I think with the proper signage and the proper publicity campaign around something like this, I think that people will take it upon themselves to not just police themselves, but to watch what's going on around them. And I guess the best example there would be every year when we have our Brent Geese Festival and bring awareness to the fact that, dogs can't be down on the beach because of the nesting and feeding of the geese as they move through on their migration path. And, people that are down there with their dogs that have no business being there are people that will step up and say, maybe you weren't aware, but this is why we don't allow dogs down here at this time of year. And I haven't read too much about confrontations like that coming to blows. I think people are unaware, and perhaps they may be trying to push the envelope a little bit, but I think if they are held accountable by other residents, other people that are trying to do the right thing, that, they will think twice about how they behave, the things that they do. So yeah, enforcement. I mean, we could go a long time in talking about that,
Yes,
but
yeah. I would just like to comment, Mr. Martin. I do a lot of walking in Parksville. That's what I do. And I'm not sure that I can really say that I've noticed any a large amount of people actually idling their other commercial vehicles, their cars and so forth in the parking lots in the streets. I walk downtown, I walk neighborhoods, I walk everywhere. And I really have not seen that amount of abuse in Parksville, quite frankly, because I think you hit the nail on the head when you say people want to do the right thing. And I like to think that people in Parksville are already doing the right thing. They don't idle their cars. I would notice it. Today I went walking in a particular neighborhood, and the only impediment I had was detecting that there was an electric vehicle coming up behind me and not noticing it because I'm walking down the road because there's no sidewalks. And so they're so quiet, they sneak up on you, is what I'm getting at. But so a lot of people have embraced the EV technology, especially in our area. We know that for a fact. I can't think of any time even walking through the commercial loading zones. We have the commercial loading zones. They go back to the grocery stores and so forth, that they do shut their units off, the big semis, the tractors, they shut their units off because it is an idle-free zone, is just for the commercial licensing that they have. I know that the RDN garbage truck services and so forth, when they're coming through our neighborhoods, if they stop when a customer comes out to maybe have a question regarding the garden refuse process, they hit the off switch right away, so the garbage truck is not idling. I don't see that it's that much of a problem, honestly, that we have to put a bylaw in place for people to do the right thing. I actually believe that people already are doing the right thing. And I think that it's just one more bylaw that we have. Enforcement is just so difficult. Our bylaw officers are literally run to the ends of the rope, as you can tell by the very first presentation that we had this afternoon. They're very busy. So I'm not sure it's much of a problem. I haven't seen, if you can think of any area that it's continually a problem, I would like to know about that, because I certainly do not have any problem addressing it in a commercial loading zone or anything like that, if that's going on, other than a refrigeration truck, keeping the motors going. But that's just my comments. Councillor Beal, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the mayor to our delegate. Thank you very much, Mr. Martin, for sharing your thoughts and the information that you have. Short of a bylaw, I would like to say that I have been places where I've seen stickers up, whether it be on a school area or perhaps it was BC Ferries. I'm not sure where it was, but I have seen places where an establishment has a sticker that says idle free zone. And I guess my question through the mayor is, do we have such stickers or signs up on city property? So I'm not talking about going to the extent of a bylaw. And if I can just get ahead of that a little bit to say that I think at a certain point, it becomes kind of a tipping point, and maybe people start to really notice these requests over and over and in different places, that they might actually think about it. Because I have, in fact, unlike the mayor, I have actually seen a number of places where people are idling their vehicles. They pull over to respond to a phone call that's come through, and they do not shut up their cars. We're going through drive-through restaurants, and people are not turning off their vehicles while they're waiting for their food to be delivered. So I have seen this in parking lots as well, in different ones that aren't necessarily related to drive-throughs. I mean, it's not nonstop, but I've certainly seen it. And so I'm wondering, are there places on city property or in our city parks, do we have idle free zone signs posted?
I think to answer your question, many of these stickers that you see, like through the drive-throughs and so forth, it's the stickers are available, I understand, through WorkSafe. It's a WorkSafe requirement. The WorkSafe requirement advises, please turn off your engine, because for the protection of the workers that are in the direct line of fire to an exhaust pipe. And I've seen those, and I believe it's WorkSafe that actually puts those stickers out, but it's to do with creating WorkSafe environments for everyone. And so if there's a lot of people, like I know in some school zones where they have drop-off zones, where the parents are dropping off the kids and so forth, they say right on it, this is it's worded such the same way for the protection of our youth and our families. We encourage you to, but that is usually the direct result of the institution itself coming up with that, just a matter of good practice to make sure that their workers and students in this case are kept safe. I would think that if the city of Parksville looked into that, they could identify areas that it was within our scope. That's certainly we could look at. I suppose if you feel that it's an issue, I would like to know where those areas would be, where they would actually benefit from such a program. I'm just not sure what that looks like. Okay, any further questions? Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Great. Enjoy your day. Good afternoon, Mr. Gray. Our next delegation is McDonald Gray Consultants Incorporated, Official Community Plan, OCP, and Zoning Amendment Application at 285 Despard Avenue West. A presentation from Nigel Gray of McDonald Gray Consultants. Mr. Gray, you have 10 minutes for your presentation. Welcome.
Straight from winter to allergy. So I feel like I'm wearing a helmet right now. It's kind of bizarre. And I made the mistake of mowing my lawn before I came here.
I hope it was a battery powered mower.
It's old. So today, this project's been in the hopper for about 2 years. So new councillors may not have seen anything about it to date. So I believe the last time we came to council was in October of last year for first and second reading. I think the last slide in this presentation does actually have those dates on it. But just to touch base with you all on where we're at and where we've been since that last meeting. So this is the bylaw amendment application for corner of Despard and the Albernia Highway. This is essentially right across from the QF site. So this is that last piece of the puzzle for the Insight development. And the intent of that corner was that it be a vibrant mixed-use corner and essentially form a gateway to the community. We've discussed proof of concepts before. This was the proof of concept we put together. I'm not going to go through all the pretty vignettes at this point because you've already seen that. And we've been out to the public with those as well. As you know, it will likely change once it comes through to you again for a development permit approval. You can see there, this, just to orient you, this is the Albernia Highway on the left, Despard at the bottom, and QF is an older air photo, but this is all now completed, as you know. And there's a plaza built on the opposite corner. So the additional permitted uses we're asking for the neighborhood commercial is to add essentially the mixed use, which is residential over commercial, which is a superior combination for this corner. In terms of this site, there's potential for 147 rental units. In this case, our voluntary conditions which we've imposed upon this development from the very beginning are that it will be secured as rental housing for 20 years. And so it cannot be turned into condos and sold immediately after it's built. The second was BC Energy step code, and I believe this is step code 3. And we also have a minimum commercial floor area component, so that ends up actually being a multi-use site and not dominated by strictly residential development on the corner. In terms of secure rental housing, as I alluded to, it's a 20-year term, and so those residential units shall only be used for long-term rental. They will not be used for short-term rental, and they cannot be condoized. Step code 3 is proposed for this building. I'm not an expert on the step code, so I can't really answer any detailed technical questions. This was, you have to remember, this is 2 years ago we came in, so I understand step code 3 will be required at some point, but that hasn't happened yet. Close. We're close. The other piece is commercial floor area, so guaranteeing that 500 square meters, essentially multiply that by 10, 5,000 plus square feet of commercial floor space will be available at that corner. It is a prime corner of the city, so it would be a shame not to see a commercial component included. Off-sites, these came up early in the process. So we had a transportation, sorry about the acronym, transportation impact analysis done. What was identified there is that a few years out after this is developed and some other developments, there will be a need for a left turn bay at the Craig all-way stop. And if I recall, the cost estimate for that was around $7,500 just to repaint the intersection. So funds have been allocated in our financial amenity contribution for that. The other piece is to provide a sidewalk connection to all 3 of the proposed buildings. That will be required at development permit in any case. And you have to remember that all of the flanking offsite improvements on the street to center line have already been done as a function of the subdivision pieces that occurred prior. So the notion of a public art space, the city does not want another plaza per se at this location, but what this stat right of way does is allows the city to use this space for public art should you choose to do so in the future, say to remember an influential character in the community at some point. But it does open this corner up and make it available to the city for those kinds of initiatives. And you can, sorry, I should say, this is the new exhibit. So this actually shows the 372 square meter space that will be dedicated. And kind of what's been happening in the background since our last meeting is that legal documentation, so the covenant language and all of that's now been done to the satisfaction of staff. And that's what's coming back now prior to the public hearing, so that there's no new information after that hearing. I think our original idea was just that QF's got a nice plaza here. And the idea of having two flanking elements on either side to form that gateway, whatever the architects come up with at the last minute. The financial amenity contribution I alluded to, again, it's $1,600 per unit. That totals $235,200. And sorry, $235,200. That will easily cover the addition of the eastbound left turn lane at the Craig Street intersection. Again, that's just some paint. And the balance is available for whatever civic initiatives that council decides. So timeline to date, like I said, we're coming up on our 2nd year anniversary. That's pretty standard for this type of process. And we've been back and forth on a number of things. If you recall, we removed a seniors component and some other things along the way as we discussed this with staff and council. Essentially, in May of 2022, so essentially a year after the application was submitted, we introduced this to council, followed by our public information meeting. You've already received notes on that. That meeting was not well attended. I think that's been the case for the last 5 public information meetings we've had, where the grandest total we had was 7 people. I'm not sure what that says about us right now as a society, but here we are. So the last meeting was in October, and our next step is that we're just asking council to forward this to the public hearing so we can get that last set of input to council directly from the public before we go to 3rd reading. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can just jump in with a question while I'm still on the top of my head here, Mr. Gray. Regarding right on the corner, you talked about the public art space that is going to be left vacant, you know, in case the city wants to participate in any which way, shape or form. Just as a personal comment, right across the street at the Quality Foods, they too created a square, so to speak. They've, I think, included a couple benches and maybe a plan for 2. It's probably the least used square that I've ever seen, because anybody that would sit there would have to have a seatbelt on to not be blown off the bench by the amount of traffic going through there up the Alberni Highway. So recently we were in Victoria at a conference, and we had looked at their public squares and amenities tour for the downtown, and they showed us all of the things that don't work. And this is one of those things that I say don't work. Only because the traffic is just so terribly loud and obtrusive that even if you grab a coffee from, I guess you're going to grab it from Quality Foods, you can grab a coffee and go out and sit and enjoy the sunshine. It's just not happening. And so I'm thinking that maybe we need to be rethinking this idea of public art and so forth on it. And instead, I think a surefire recommendation would be to have a grove of trees actually planted in those areas, instead of a public art, a grove of trees that would have to have dedicated irrigation systems to it because of the amount of hard surface around there. But a grove of trees, I'm sure you know someone that could recommend trees that are actually be quite conducive to that area. And the suggestion to the grove of trees could even have a bench in it as well, because at least those trees would provide some shading as well. But it also is going to perform some carbon sequestering as well for all the traffic going through. It's not much, but it's a step in the right direction. I think that would be a really good use to try that. And I certainly think that council might find favor to that suggestion, is to be part of the process. Obviously, it's up to the developer in this particular case, because it's going to change, just taking a hard surface dedicated to the city and actually putting trees in it. But I think long and short of it is you're going to create a better environment for your tenants as well as the commercial users in that area, which I would anticipate maybe could include coffee shops for the commercial coffee shops, maybe a little craft brewery might be kind of nice too. Exactly. So that type of thing. But if you had, trees in that area, and then you could obviously pick up a theme and pick up those trees throughout the rest of the development. I'm not a designer, but I'm not afraid of sharing my ideas. So just a thought, Mr. Gray.
Yeah, my quick response is we'll leave it to the designers, and the city does not have to use the start right away. So when it comes through development permit, that's where you'll be able to key in these ideas to the team. Yeah. And hopefully I'll be involved in that.
Well, yes, and luckily our planner is in the room as well. So that's also helpful in these discussions. Is there any other questions for Mr. Gray? Councillor Gord.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Gray, for the presentation. I heard your perspective about the benefits of this development. I want the council and yourself to hear what about the public, what I've heard, and having lived in Parksville, what we've seen this section of Parksville change. As you might remember, it used to be covered in trees, Douglas fir, and now we see a lot of rental units, some single family, and QF has come, more trees have come down, and we have seen replacement trees on the sidewalks, which are not really the same. And I understand it's privately owned and all the things that are associated with that. My question, first of all, why do we need this 147 rental units? What we have in that block of the city, we have close to 500 rental units with the district group and the Gateway Towers and the QF buildings that have gone up. We are hearing from the public, like, this is a place to live and shop. Okay, like people go to the grocery store and live. So is this the appeal that Parksville wants to give to the people who are living there, or the future who want to live there? I don't want to go back to 2018 when a park space was denied. I would really like to see a park area so people can actually enjoy that space. But looking into the website of the developer, is it Insight Group? Yeah, so I see there is a couple of water features that are shown, and we know there were like wetlands and stuff. Is there any status on those? I don't see any wetlands being present anywhere.
Yeah, I'm trying to be careful about how I answer this question. So there was a master plan developed since 2013 by Insight. Not all of the things in that master plan landed on the ground, and that was not Insight's decision. We would have loved to see the park site there. We would have loved to see the required open space on the 2 apartment blocks that are already built. Those were sold to developers after the fact as properties. Do I think it would be a better development if it had those outdoor play area requirements and the park in place? Yes, because that's the way it was planned to be. The answer about trees is we could have a long conversation about trees in the urban environment. The fact is, all of Parksville was logged out at one point, and I'm not saying that's good or bad, but that is what happened. So these are all successional forests in our area, and they're within the urban containment boundary. So within that municipal boundary, which for me, as an outdoor enthusiast, is what makes all the difference. People should live within the urban containment boundaries, and we should preserve what's out there. So between Parksville and the West Coast and between Parksville and the North Coast, that's where we're preserving, GHG reduction, mitigation, all those things. And when we do redevelop in town, we put the correct tree species in. So as Doug's alluding to, we're obviously not going to put a 300-foot tree forested species in that plaza where it can fall down and hit the buildings. So this is a discussion I have on every single project, and I actually had it 2 times last week in different public information meetings where it doesn't have to be a decision between building density and housing for people, which we're in a really bad spot on right now. But it's more mitigating what we cause to affect outside of our boundaries and trying to get as much density and compact form as we can within our city spaces.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Councillor Martin.
Through our mayor, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Gray. Has there been a consideration about the below market housing, a percentage of the building in there, as there is in the other buildings that are there through BC Housing, to give us some of the things we kind of need in this community?
So this is part of the housing spectrum. This one is locked in as rental. The other 2 only have the affordable housing components locked in, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's not occurring on this particular property. I can't recall, and I'm going to look over at Blaine, if we built in a density provision for affordable. Yeah, so there is that is available to the developer when they come back for development permit to add in those and lock in those affordable housing units. So it is built into this one as well. That was a last minute thing we did when we pulled the seniors out of it.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Grenz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just, I guess, a question maybe to build on what the mayor's been raised, which is, and perhaps it sounds like you've already addressed this question, that this will come out in the development permit phase, but given that this is the gateway to the community off of the highway, it's I think imperative that we have a presentation that's very clearly decided upon what people see when they arrive in the community through this development. And so I'm wondering if there's any, I guess, opportunity to think about how to create more opportunities for that impact upon arrival, plus addressing the mayor's concern around allowing for gathering and community building within the development that would have to be tucked behind the building, which is kind of where the parking lot is now. But if you look at, say, European style, where they'll have the beer garden tucked in behind buildings right in a neighborhood, but they're protected from traffic and all that because they're kind of tucked in behind the development. And maybe even a grove of trees involved as well in Europe, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the kick at the can is a development permit, and I think everybody's pretty tuned in that this is gonna be a high profile optic piece for the city, and you can see we've been considering that the whole time. Even if you never use that stat right away, sorry if you can't hear me. It's available and it is a bit of a control piece for the city, right? So you do have the right over that piece. So if it's not getting designed exactly the way you think it should, you can hold firm to that in that, well, that's not exactly what we want there. Do I think it should be right in the corner? I don't know. If there was a brewery, you'd want to be on the south side, and that is kind of the reason why we located there in the beginning. Would it be just as good tucked behind a building with the correct sun azimuth? Yeah, maybe. But I'm gonna leave that to the architects and landscape architects in the next phase.
Follow up, Councilor Grassi.
Sorry, one quick follow-up. With regard to the plaza on the other side of the street, what is that is owned by, like, who owns that, basically? Whose decision is it, how that gets?
My understanding is that QF owns it. I don't know what to say. I didn't design it, so I'm not really supposed to say anything. I think plazas work when there's eyes on them. I think it's better when you have a residential component looking down on that space, so it doesn't become a dead space and overtaken by the wrong kind of people. That said, it's a really high visibility intersection, so I'm less concerned about crime and that kind of thing happening there. But yeah, some things to think about.
Thank you. And Councilor Beal. Councilor Beal? It looks like she's freeze frame. Yes, Councilor Beal, you're on.
Thank you. Sorry about that. The unmute did not want to work. A couple of questions and through the mayor to Mr. Gray. Thank you very much for the presentation. One of my questions, I have two areas, but one has to do with the egress. I gather from the diagrams that the main access to this complex would be off of Despard Avenue. Is that correct?
There are two accesses, and those accesses are already built and in place. So anything built on this site will have to adhere to those driveway locations. So there is one on Despard and another one on Alberni, which is shown going into the underground parking right now.
Okay, so my question follow-up, from your presentation, thank you. I could see that the plan is to have a left turn lane available to go into the development off of Despard. That's for anybody who's traveling west, traveling east. And the other one off of Alberni is strictly to go into the underground parking. Is that correct?
Yeah, okay. That was my understanding. They're both right in, right out.
Okay, all right. Has there been any thought about how this will affect nearby neighborhoods? Is there any anticipated downside? I'm concerned about whether or not this will lead to traffic cutting through, let's say, Moss Avenue or Stanford, or is that expected or not?
A TIA was completed, so they did analyze all of those effects, and the only negative effect that was to be mitigated was for out towards 2023, which it is now, which is funny, but and that was to repaint a left turn bay on Craig Street. And our engineers tell us that that intersection is already large enough, so it's just a repaint at that location.
Okay, thank you for that. My other question has to do with the commercial and residential. My understanding is that for a certain designation within the OCP, there must be commercial. Does that mean that there must be commercial on the ground floor of every one of these buildings? Or is it possible when it comes time to build these, if there's less demand for commercial space, is it possible for one of the buildings to end up being entirely residential?
The answer is yes and yes. So one of the things we're covenanting is the requirement to have some component of commercial, which is that 5,000 square feet, so 500 square meters. And so that is required. Yes, it is quite possible that some of the buildings will be standalone residential buildings.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to hear that.
Any other questions for Mr. Gray? Councilor Gore.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Gray, so with the current zoning, there are a few things that can be put up and you want to change that to this mixed use. Is there no interest from the applicant that they would be looking at these options? With the current zoning in place, they don't want to at all?
The answer is I don't think we want that. I don't think, so this is just putting on my planner hat. I don't think we want a low rise commercial development at the corner entry to our city.
Thank you.
Like we've got enough of that along the Old Island Highway right now.
Thank you. Any further questions? Hearing none, thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Gray. Nice to see you again. Moving on, for reports, we have Mr. Russell, Director of Community Planning and Building. Could you please give us the background on the issue regarding the second follow-up report for consideration of application for an official community plan amendment and zoning and development amendment at 285 Despard Avenue West to further consider an official community plan amendment and zoning and development bylaw amendment? Mr. Russell.
Good afternoon, your worship. I'm sorry, your mayor and council. Old habits. So at this time, I'm going to be brief as the delegation for this application covered it pretty extensively. We're at a position in this process where the application to advance would go to public hearing. And so that is our recommendation today, that the application advance to public hearing. If it approved, it's a vision to, as been shown, 147 residential units be added to the existing zone. A new comprehensive development zone would be created. I do want to clarify with respect to the public art statutory right of way. It's really just an area where a piece of public art could be located. It's not dictating at this point the form that that corner would take, and that would be taken care of as part of a future development permit where council will be able to scrutinize in great detail with the design panel to ensure that basically you're happy with that corner. So as I said, at this point, it's just a place for art to go at some point in the future. And the recommendations are per the agenda, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you for that clarification on that corner. Thank you, Mr. Russell. Is there any other questions for Mr. Russell at this time? Councilor Gore.
Thank you, Mayor. So this came up before, Mr. Russell, that the Highway 4A from that property, that side is lacking a sidewalk to take people down to downtown. What's the proposed timeline where we can see such a sidewalk come into fruition, do you think? Or because we are building all these, but the only way for these people to walk or take a bike downtown would be detour along Moliette or go along Despard towards Craig and down.
If I may, Mayor, through Councilor Gore, I'm not in a position to fully answer that question because I don't administer, my department doesn't administer sidewalks in the city, but that is in council's capital plan. So there's a capital plan that the engineering department prepares that outlines their work program for the next 20 years on when they will do upgrades. And it often comes down to some of the biggest costs in the street are actually what's underground that no one sees. And so it would typically be triggered at such point as that infrastructure needs to be replaced. And when that infrastructure, the sewer lines and water lines need to be replaced, that's when the road would be looked at to be fully upgraded to the current municipal standard. But I don't know the specific timeline on when that is in that capital plan, but it certainly is something that is planned for the future. And certainly council, does have influence over that plan. And when that plan is reviewed, council can certainly provide direction to that plan.
Thank you. Councilor Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to our Director of Planning, and picking up on Councilor Gore's comment about the sidewalk. That is an area that I've personally frequented many times, including at dusk and beyond. And actually, just to extend that sidewalk, as I there is a temporary sidewalk that does go down. It almost leads to Stanford. And if we can get something through to Stanford, just the beginning there, that would make all the difference in the world. Plus asking BC Hydro to get, put a light on that last pole. I realize it's not really the topic here, but I just want to plant that seed because once people are at, the end of Stanford and Moss there, it's actually, then you can get to Stanford and there's sidewalks all the way down and it's really quite safe. But that bit of temporary sidewalk is almost impossible to see at night due to the lack of light and a curb that's quite a tripping hazard. So I agree, thank you, Councillor Gore, for mentioning that because when we get these bits and pieces, it can become quite hazardous for residents.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Russell? Councillor Gore?
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to make a comment and Mr. Russell, you probably know this area probably falls under DPA 15, the Coastal Douglas Fir Protection. I was just going back to it being a heavily treed lot to just not even one single tree standing, completely raised. It's just going back to people's concerns about developments. It's not that people don't like growth, but they would like to see some responsible environmental considerations being taken into account when we grow. So do we see any of those DPAs being effective in your opinion in this development? Again, going back to like, I've heard that there were a couple of wetlands in that parcel of land, but they've disappeared with the trees. So is there any effectiveness of our DPAs in this project, you think?
If I may, your mayor through to Councillor Gore. So the Douglas Fir development permit area guidelines was addressed as part of the development permit that facilitated the original subdivision. So that has been approved under that DPA. So for the development going forward, it would fall under the form and character DPA that's in place.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Any further questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Russell. Do we have a mover and seconder for the recommendation that point 1, that the report from the Director of Community Planning and Building dated April 25th, 2023, entitled Second Follow-Up Report, Consideration of an Application for an Official Community Plan Amendment and Zoning and Development Bylaw Amendment at 285 Despard Avenue West, file 3360 PZNO35 be received. Part 2, that plan Parksville Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 1492.7, and Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 2000.142, be advanced to a public hearing to be held in the forum at the Parksville Civic and Technology Center located at 100 Jensen Avenue East, Parksville, BC, on Monday, June 5th, 2023, starting at 1 p.m. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Gren, seconded by Councillor Wood. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you so much. Mr. Russell, our Director of Community Planning and Building, could you please give us the background on the issue regarding consideration of a development permit to facilitate a new public washroom building in the Parksville Community Park for the issuance of a development permit?
Certainly, your mayorship and council. So for council consideration is the issue of a development permit. In this case, the proposed land alteration and construction is proposed to occur within the floodplain development permit area. The purpose of this permit is to establish safe guidelines for the development of the site as proposed. There's background information in this report that's mostly for your enjoyment of information that's a bit outside of the scope of what this permit actually is looking for. So I want to just, basically what this permit is intending to establish is the safe construction elevation of the bathroom facility. It's not in designing. The council mostly sees form and character DPAs that get into the aesthetics of the The washroom in this permit is really just a planning department permit to deal with, is the building going to be built at a safe flood elevation? And what other constraints are on where it's sited with relationship to those flood concerns. So a professional report by qualified engineers established that flood elevation. That's a requirement of the permit, that the recommendations of that report are to be followed so that the building is safe from predicted flood waters due to global sea level rise and all that good stuff. And the recommendations are per the agenda for a permit issuance.
Thank you for that, Mr. Russell. Any questions for Mr. Russell, please? Councillor Gore.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Russell again. What is being used to have those FCL levels, like 4 meters or something? What is being used to achieve those? Is it some sort of fill that's being used or? Okay. My other question is, sorry, it's a bit of a technical question, but I know this, I was just reading the report that this falls under DPA 11 and 12, but then it says the DPA 11 is not really applicable because it's about 70 meters away from the high sea level mark. So just curious, why was DPA 11 included in the first place?
If I make Mayor O'Brien through to Council Gore, the property subject to both those development permit areas. So there's a portion of the property within 30 or so meters of the ocean that's in the coastal DPA. But this particular part of the property is not.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Any other questions for Mr. Russell at this time? Seeing none. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that point one, that the report from the Director of Community Planning and Building dated April 25th, 2023, entitled Consideration of a Development Permit at 193 Island Highway East to facilitate a new public washroom building and associated landscaping, file 3060 PDP 141 be received. Point two, that council issue development permit number 23 PDP 141 to the owner of 193 Island Highway East to facilitate the construction of a public washroom, building and landscaping. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Gore. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you so much, Mr. Russell. The next report we have is from Mr. Bovin, Director of Engineering and IT. Could you please give us a background on the issue regarding the storm drainage master plan request for a proposal award to award the contract for a storm drainage master plan? Mr. Bovin.
Thank you and good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This report is to seek Council's approval to enter into a contract for the completion of a storm drainage master plan with Urban Systems Limited in the amount of $149,614 plus GST. Funds were budgeted in 2022 and carried forward to 2023 to complete this work. This is the third of 4 master plans the engineering department is undertaking this year. Recommendations are as per the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bovin. Are there any questions for Mr. Bovin? Got off easy. Ex-Councillor Patterson will remember the other two parts of this. Now we're into phase 3. Thank you, Councillor Patterson, ex-Councillor Patterson. So do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the report from the Director of Engineering and Information Technology Systems dated April 21, 2023, entitled Storm Drainage Master Plan Request for Proposal Award be received? Point two, the staff be authorized to award the contract for a storm drainage master plan in the amount of $149,614 plus GST to Urban Systems Limited. And then point three, that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to execute the contract with Urban Systems Limited. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Wood. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. So the next report we have is from Mrs. Bovin, Manager of Finance. Could you please give us the background on the issue regarding 2022 Annual Development Cost Charges Report to provide development cost charge activity details for 2022. Mrs. Bowman.
Oops, sorry, thanks, Amanda. The Local Government Act requires municipalities to report annually on development cost charge or DCC activity in the previous fiscal year. This report provides council with the DCCs received and interest earned in 2022, as well as the amounts used to fund projects during that year. The recommendation is as per the agenda, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
That report was in your background information, council. Is there any questions for Mrs. Bowman at this time? Seeing none. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation that the report from the manager of finance dated April 18th, 2023, entitled 2022 Annual Development Cost Charges Report be received for information? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Grens. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Bowman. Mrs. Holmes, Director of Finance, could you please give us a background on the issue regarding the 2023-2027 final financial plan to provide council with the 2023-2027 final financial plan bylaw? Thank you, Mrs. Holmes.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm here for a while, so get comfy. We've got a few reports and 6 bylaws to wrap up our whole financial planning season. So the first being our 2023 to 2027 financial plan, and the bylaws related to that start on page 177 of the agenda as well. What this is the culmination of all of the meetings we had through March and April. It incorporates all of council's recommendations and direction, which includes various new projects and increased levels of service during that 5-year period. The community charter requires that a 5-year financial plan is adopted by council before May 15th of each year, and that then we also create a property tax bylaw related to that. We had 5 public council meetings, and so this is really pulling all of that information together. Just making reference on page 159 of your agenda to kind of the estimated impacts of the 5-year financial plan in 2023 to an average residential property, which this year a single family dwelling average is about $730,000 of assessment. So that's reflecting property tax increases of approximately $125. Water utility increases of about $15, sewer $6, and solid waste fees of about $7, totaling $153 as reflected in the 2023 property tax rates and water rates that we'll see in a few minutes. This also reflects some of the research that we were required to do just related to some of council requests at our last meeting, and so just reflects the funding from reserves related to that. The last thing I'll just make reference to is on page 184 of your agenda. Part of what's required as part of the financial plan bylaw is for some discussion of objectives and policies related to revenue sources, tax classes, and permissive tax exemptions. So you'll see in the final pages of the bylaw some statistics related to funding sources and proportions of the total, as well as the distribution of our assessment among property tax classes. And with respect to funding sources, one of the things that can be misleading is probably a strong word, but those percentages can really change depending on our other revenues, things like capital grants or other levels of government funding. And so it can skew kind of the proportions. Obviously, if we've got a year like last year where we had a very significant amount of capital grants, it makes it look like our property taxes this year all of a sudden are a higher proportion than usual, when in actuality, they're probably quite consistent. So that would be just my comment on that graphic specifically. With respect to the distribution of property taxes amongst the classes, you'll note that they're very consistent year over year and continue to be. We may see, as all of this growth amongst residential properties continues, that proportion of residential may increase, but right now it's still quite consistent on that. So just making reference while we're talking about financial plan to that, that disclosure is required by the community charter as well and was brought in maybe about 15 years ago, that there was additional disclosure required in addition to just the numbers. So the recommendations related to the financial plan are per the report in the agenda on page 157.
Thank you, Mrs. Holmes. Just while we're on the subject, if I may, just when you talked about the revenue sources, so you were talking about, we're talking about 180, page 184 of our agenda package. The property taxes municipal share for 2023 are allowing for a 55.5%. As compared to 49.2% in 2022. The property taxes, is that all classes of property taxes, the residential, commercial and so forth? Is that what makes up that 55%?
Right, that's all classes, all property tax that we're collecting.
Can you make a comment and so forth, Mrs. Holmes, on the 49.2% in 2022 as compared to 55.5%? Is that to do with the amount of increased building? Or is it to do with increased assessments? Is it to do with just the excellent management of all the finances by our finance department?
Really what it relates to is that if you note in 2022, our proportion of other sources was 27%. We had a lot of significant capital grant funding last year. And so the property tax piece of the pie gets a little smaller because the capital grant portion was much larger last year, if you remember, next door and the community park.
Right.
So that's really what it's about. I don't think there's significant change in our property taxes. Yeah.
And that makes sense. I remember those projects.
Mhm.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
clearly. Yes, thank you. That helps me with my understanding that portion of it. Council, any other questions on this particular for Councillor Gore?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and through you to our Director of Finance. Looking at the tables on page 159, 162, sorry, I'm just trying to roll myself here to that page. So if you can help me understand this table here, the City of Parksville municipal increased 125, and there are other numbers with the library and then RDN, total to 225. Is that the total increase for a household in Parksville?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gore. So that's with respect to those individual taxing bodies, and it's just property taxes. It doesn't reflect water increases or solid waste. And so you'll see that the 125 on page 162 of a municipal increase is the same as the 125 on page 159.
Right.
And the other amounts was just to give some context to council as to what other jurisdictions are charging and their increases to their own property taxes this year, so that you've got a sense of what an individual, an average residential household in Parksville is looking at with respect to overall tax increase. When I did the report, we didn't actually have the school tax rates yet because we actually just received those on Friday. So in addition to that 225 is another $60 expected related to school tax. So those are just provided for your context in terms of where the City of Parksville's total increase is relative to others for an average residential home.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to wait for my question for page 162 until we got to the page 162 item. But since Councillor Gore jumped ahead, I thought I might as well ask my question now. The Director of Finance, when we see the regional district of Nanaimo and the Nanaimo Regional Hospital District, especially the hospital district, average property tax dollar amount of $53, are we going to, does the RDN give you some paperwork to send with those property tax assessments so that recipients know what that, say, $53 is going toward?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Wood. So further to your question on this, earlier in our financial planning process, I did follow up with the RDN. They do have a graphic that they do for each municipal area and electoral area that we are not providing in paper in terms of trying to be paperless, but we will provide a link. We provide an insert that has some discussion of our financial plan. But what I can do is provide the link to that RDN summary and their financial plan page. And so our residents will be able to go directly to that to understand the change there. The other thing that we typically do is for our front office staff, because once we get into June, they're the ones that are receiving a lot of calls, and our property tax clerk as well, both in person, phones, emails, is that we have that RDN sheet available to give kind of a high level discussion about that, and then have a phone number for the RDN as well as their website to refer. Last year, if you recall, there was a very, very significant increase in the hospital district, especially this year is smaller than last year. And we found that although a lot of people came in with questions, because we had that kind of high level information, they were thrilled to hear what the hospital district had planned, and we're happy to pay it. But I think it's just a little bit of sticker shock when they get that property tax bill. So we found just having a little bit of information and working quite closely with RDN finance staff that all went really, really well. So we'll continue to provide that link.
Excellent, thank you.
Any further questions at this time? That takes care of this first section then, Jen?
Right, so the recommendations on page 157 for council's consideration with respect to the financial plan.
Right, so the financial plan, yes. Do I have a number, point one, that the report from the Director of Finance dated April 24th, 2023, entitled 2023 to 2027 Final Financial Plan be received, and point two, that the 2023 to 2027 Final Financial Plan bylaw be advanced to the statutory process. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Wood. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Moving on, Mrs. Holmes, if you could give us the background to the issue regarding the 2023 municipal property tax rates. Brought in information to council regarding the 2023 tax rates bylaw.
Great, thank you. So this is what flows from the final financial plan, and that is to set property tax rates that collect the amount of property taxes that are included in our final financial plan. And so this bylaw requires approval by council by May 15th, and following the approval of the final financial plan bylaw. If you recall, council approved a 6.8% increase, which includes a 0.5% direct contribution to our capital reserves that totals $235,500. The recommendations are per the report on page 61, and the actual bylaw related to this, the property tax bylaw, is on page 177. And on that, you'll see, oh, I'm sorry, that's not the right one. On page 187, the tax rate bylaw reflects the rates for the municipality, as well as the library, regional district, the regional wastewater function, and the hospital, as well as the downtown business improvement area. And so how that works is those other jurisdictions give us their total requisition, and then we calculate the rates that are required in order to collect those amounts and remit to them. Typically, August 1st is the deadline for that. And so you'll see that bylaw specifics on page 188, but there's also a copy of it attached to your report. Again, on page 162, we've talked about that a little bit already, but looking at for an average residential home, about $285 total, all jurisdictions, including the city of Parksville. What I will note for you as a reduction from last year is there's a $4 reduction in debt. The final payment was made in 2022 related to some debt that the city had. And so you won't see in our bylaw anymore a column related to debt if you look at last year's. So don't be concerned that it's missing. It just doesn't need to be there anymore. So the only debt remaining for the city then is related to our water treatment plant, and most of that is paid by DCCs. And there is also debt related to the development of some of the resort area, and that's paid by those properties through a local area service. So the debt no longer needs to be on the property tax bylaw for our citizens. If you recall, also just a reminder that our due date for property taxes is July 2nd. That falls on a weekend this year, so it's actually July 4th. And that at the end of business that day would be a 5% penalty with a second 5% penalty applied on the first business day after September 14th. That's our penalty scheme, as it's called, and council has already received that earlier this year. And my final comment on that is just to remind council as well as our residents, and this will be part of our insert in our property tax notice, is that tax deferrals are available that are provided by the province, the deferral program for families and applicants over 55. And so we do promote that as part of our media and communication around property taxes. So if there are people that are able to take advantage of that, they have information about it. The recommendations related to the municipal property tax bylaw is on page 161 of the agenda.
And thank you, Mrs. Holmes, for the clarification on the due dates and so forth, and plus the deferment property tax program as well. Excellent to bring that up at this time. Any questions for Mrs. Holmes on this section? Councillor Gore.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just echo your comments. It's kind of timely for you to bring the deferment program, especially for our seniors on fixed income. The 6.8 increase is inevitable, but we are seeing all the cost of living just increasing everywhere. So I thank the staff for the diligent work you've done to keep present us a very tight budget, and I appreciate it. And thank you for again promoting that deferment program for our seniors.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the report from the Director of Finance dated April 24th, 2023, entitled 2023 Municipal Property Tax Rates be received for information? And point two, that the 2023 tax rates bylaw be advanced to the statutory process. Moved by Councillor Gore, seconded by Councillor Beal. Any discussion? Councillor Grants.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment through to council and staff to thank everyone for the work on this. The key word for the environment we're in right now is inflation. That's the buzzword that's on everyone's lips right now. And given that environment, I believe that we've got a prudent budget here that will put us in a solid position and continued solid financial footing for the city of Parksville and taxpaying citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grants. Any further points? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. We've got a couple more, Mrs. Holmes. Mrs. Holmes, Director of Finance, could you please give us a background on the issue regarding 2023 sanitary sewer utility rate increase to adjust the sewer utility user rates? Mrs. Holmes.
Thank you. If you recall, when we went over the water and sewer funds as part of our financial planning process, there were some assumptions made with respect to rate increases in there. And so this report and the related bylaws are to, in a sense, bring those rates into effect. And so each year, the city must at least revisit the rates. We don't increase them every year, but it is part of our financial planning process to visit those rates. What I will note is that the sewer master plan and the two water master plans that we're doing, both the one being done by engineering as well as the new project approved by council to look at drinking water, those master plans will inform future rate adjustments. And so what we'll see next year and as part of the presentation of the master plans is recommendations from those plans to look at our rate structures. And as we discussed during the financial planning process, the way we charge for some of these services may need to change just given the changing nature of the way water is and drought levels and water restrictions. So that'll be part of next year's. But for this year, we're looking at kind of our usual increases that we have had. So with respect to the sanitary sewer, we have a rate increase of 3% that is applied to the rates as well as the parcel tax rates. And that results in an increase to the average user of about $6 per year. The related bylaws for this are on page 189 and 193. And so that's the actual metered rates that are tied to water as well as the parcel tax rate are in two different bylaws. So you'll see that we have two bylaws to request council's approval on. On page 166 is a chart just showing what the changes are that we've just gone over. The parcel tax amounts to about 550 increase. And again, that's for properties that have the ability to connect to sewer but haven't yet connected to sewer. So they're not paying the metered rates, but they do pay a parcel rate that goes towards supporting the sanitary sewer utility. The recommendations are on page 165 of your agenda. You'll note there's 3 for this one because of the 2 bylaws related to the utilities.
Any questions for Mrs. Holmes at this point? Thank you. Do I have a mover or seconder for the following recommendation that the report from the Director of Finance dated April 18th, 2023, entitled 2023 Sanitary Sewer Utility Rate Increases be received? Point 2, that the amended City of Parksville Sanitary and Storm Sewage System Bylaw 1999, not number 1319, be brought forward for council's consideration. And point 3, that the amended City of Parksville Sewer Parcel Tax Bylaw 1999, number 1493, be brought forward with council's consideration. I have a mover and seconder for this. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Beal. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. One more, Mrs. Holmes. Mrs. Holmes, Director of Finance, could you please give us a background on the issues regarding 2023 water utility rate increase to adjust the water utility user rates?
Okay, last one. So this report and the related bylaws on page 191 and 195 are to reflect the 5% increase in water utility and parcel taxes that we discussed during the financial planning process. They need to be incorporated into the water utility rates and parcel rates bylaws. The approximate increase for the average user is $14.50 per year. What I'll just remind council again is this is reflected in our rate structure, which includes tiered water rates for water use. And there's a fixed charge portion as well as the meter usage charge. The fixed charge includes a base infrastructure fee and the water treatment plant fee of $20 per year. And the 5% wasn't charged to that water treatment plant fee. What I will suggest to you though is once we're looking again at those master plans as well as all our infrastructure works is that we may, as we discussed during financial planning, want to change that fixed charge portion so that we're ensuring that we're fully funding our infrastructure renewal going forward. On page 170 of your agenda is a summary of the incremental charges related to that, with the parcel tax being about $9.23 with that 5% increase. The recommendations are per the report on page 169 of your agenda.
Thank you for that, Ms. Holmes. Any questions for Ms. Holmes? Seeing none, do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation that the report from the Director of Finance dated April 18th, 2023, entitled 2023 Water Utility Rate Increases be received? Point 2, that the amended City of Parksville Water System Bylaw number 1999, number 1320, be brought forward for council's consideration. Point 3, that the amended City of Parksville Water Parcel Tax Bylaw 1999, number 1494, be brought forward for council's consideration. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Grenz. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you, Mrs. Holmes. Just for final comments, I'd like to just say that Mrs. Holmes, you've done an amazing job once again, explaining so much to us. We spent so much time together. I figure we're related. You know, it's just been incredible, and all of council here. And I have to say also that for relatively newly elected council, I have to say how proud I am to have you part of the team, because the rigorous discussions that happen on every step of this financial plan, it explained how interested you are in the system and how interested you are in learning the system and trying to work the best for the taxpayers of Parksville. You did an amazing job with the help of Mrs. Holmes. So thank you very much for your consideration and all the time together. It's been fun being with you all. We can take a little break now. I'm good with that. But thank you once again. You did a great job, one and all. It was a lot of numbers, let me tell you. And Mrs. Holmes, you and your department, once again, made the very complex seem very simple to us,
Thank you very
mere
much.
elected officials.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. Mrs. Weeks, Manager of Administrative Services, could you please give us a background on the issue regarding the lease agreement with the Parksville Community Garden Society to request council approve for a lease agreement renewal between the city and the Parksville Community Garden Society? Mrs. Weeks.
Thank you. This report is for council to consider renewing the agreement with the Parksville Community Garden Society to allow for the ongoing use of the community garden on the property. The current agreement is set to expire May 31st, and staff are seeking approval to renew the lease with the same terms and conditions for an additional 3-year term, and the recommendations per the council agenda.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Weeks. Is there any questions for Mrs. Weeks at this particular time? Councillor Gord.
Thank you, Mayor. This question is not really to this lease, perhaps, but I was wondering if the community garden societies reached out to the city or the staff to look for additional spots to have community gardens?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Gore, not that I'm aware of.
I can comment further that the Community Gardens Society, Mr. Dembicki, reached out months ago for an appointment to have a meeting with myself. And just it was more of a global style meeting proposed for community gardens. We set up a date. He canceled that date and nothing further happened from that point. Thank you. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation that the report from the manager of administrative services dated April 11th, 2023, entitled Lease Agreement with the Parksville Community Garden Society be received? Point 2, that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to sign the Parksville Community Garden Society lease agreement for Lot B, District Lot 4, Nanus District Plan EPP 27740 205, like Vickers Street, for the period of June 1st, 2023 to May 31st, 2026. You have a mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Gore, moved by, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? That is unanimous. A lot of unanimous votes today. Makes it easy for staff. Good job. We have a little bit of to go here. I'm going to ask council if anyone would prefer a comfort break at this time. Yes, I'm going to call a 5-minute comfort break. We'll resume at 2:55. Thank you. Counselor Bill, I hope you took care of the comfort break in Mexico. Probably just as well. Okay, I believe everybody's back. So let's carry on now. So bylaws, we're going to do 3 readings of the 5-year financial plan bylaw. 2023 to 2027, number 1584, the 2023-2027 financial plan. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation that the 5-year final financial plan bylaw 2023 to 2027, number 1584 be read 3 times? Moved by Councillor Gore, second by Councillor Martin. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you so much. Bylaws 3 readings. This is the tax rates bylaws 2023 to number 1585, 2023 tax rates. So I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that tax rates bylaw 2023 number 1585 be read 3 times. Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Beal. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. 3 readings for the sanitary and storm sewage system amendment bylaw 2023 number 1319.20. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the sanitary and storm sewage system amendment bylaw 2023 number 1319.20 be read 3 times? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Beal. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Unanimous. Next 3 readings for the water service system amendment bylaw 2023 number 1320-32. Do I have a mover seconder for the recommendation that water service system amendment bylaw 2023 number 1320.32 be read 3 times? Moved by Councillor Grant, seconded by Councillor Wood. Are there any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Unanimous. Couple more, folks. 3 readings for the sewer parcel tax amendment bylaw 2023 number 1493.10. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation that sewer parcel tax amendment bylaw 2023 number 1493.10 be read 3 times? Moved by Councillor Martin, Councillor Beal seconded. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. A roll. 3 readings for the water parcel tax amendment bylaw 2023 number 1494.8. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the water parcel tax amendment bylaw 2023 number 1494.8 be read 3 times? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Beal. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. That's it for the bylaws. We're done, Jetta. The motions from previous meetings. Councillor Gore, could you please give us a background on the issue regarding your previous notice of motion for the Shelley Road Park Playground and accessible servicing? Councillor Gore.
Thank you, Mayor. Mary needs to recuse herself.
Excuse me, I just want to let you know I will recuse myself since I have been involved with the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beal. You're a margarita calling.
Thank you, Mayor. And through you to the council, in April 12th, we had a member from the Pioneer Crescent Residents Association, Sandy McLean, give us a preliminary information about this volunteer project that the neighborhood has been working on. I'm hoping we can support these efforts. Pioneer Crescent has a very involved neighborhood, and I really commend their efforts in taking up a leadership role in this project. We know that increasing green spaces and maintaining them comes at a real heavy cost for the city, increased cost for the city. We also heard from the public through the OCP and other interactions that they desire for more green spaces and parks that add to the quality of life of people, not just a community park. And now there's so much talk about the natural assets and the monetary value of parks and green spaces to the city. I'm really hoping that we can have support of the council for this, so we can get the ball rolling on this program, a similar program that exists in the city of Nanaimo. They call it the Partners in Parks program, where it's public participation designed to bring the ideas and efforts of volunteers together within the city's Department of Parks. And it utilizes their talents and skills to develop, maintain, and beautify Nanaimo's new and old open spaces, parks, and trails. So I'm hoping I will have a support of the council. And my conversations with our CAO is that there is no timeline on this we are putting. We are not putting any extra load or pressure on the staff for this. When they're able to, they will reach out to the neighborhood association and come back to the council with recommendations regarding costs and the involvement of the city as well. So.
Thank you. So I would suggest that then you would like to make your recommendation, your notice of motion, your motion at this time.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would recommend that staff be directed to work with the Pioneer Crescent Neighborhood Residents Association to provide options for council consideration for installation of a play equipment and accessible surfacing at the Shelley Road Park.
Seconded by Councillor Wood. Thank you. Councillor Gore, do you have anything further to add?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So like I mentioned previously, this resident association has been working with the neighborhood, with the volunteers. They're involved with the Lions Club and Rotary Club, and they have secured, support from these organizations. So my hope is that the requirements from the city in terms of monetary and ongoing maintenance will be minimal. I want to encourage such initiatives in our city. This is how we can continue to preserve and maintain those green spaces that we all desire at a minimal cost to the city. Thank you.
Councillor Wood, you have next, go with the microphone. Good. My comment would be probably back to Councillor Gore. You mentioned that it is in cooperation with the service clubs like the Lions Club. So they offered already, like they obviously are very big participants in the community park venture playground, do an amazing job. They have indicated that they wish to participate in the Shelley Road Park perhaps as well. What would that look like?
Thank you, Mayor. My understanding from the information I have from Mrs. McLean is that the Lions would be installing those equipment for the neighborhood.
Actually, the
They would be
installation.
installing, yes.
Then with playground equipment, there's always like operational and maintenance and so forth to make sure that all the equipment is safe for the kiddies to use, type of thing. So would they take care of that as well?
So good question again, Mayor, but these all questions will be answered better when the staff actually has that interaction with the neighborhood. That's when we'll get a clear idea of what the ask will be for this towards the city.
Right. Well, at this particular point, it's just a request for provide options and so forth. Because I know our Parks Department have the capital works projects, they have a budget and a schedule for capital works projects going out 10 to 20 years. And what it is adding parks and so forth to neighborhoods as part of it, where they do a count of the children in the neighborhood that could be affected or benefited from that and what that would look like. So at this particular point, since it's already adding to a fairly extensive workload, you're suggesting that this will get done when the other workload projects are handled as they see fit. Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. I did ask I did ask a few questions about what the community has already put into this park. And the answers I got back were a survey of the property done by J.E. Anderson and Associates at no cost to the city. All of these are no cost to the city. Drainage plan done by Timberlake Jones Engineering. Concrete pads for 2 benches, 2 picnic tables, 2 benches, 2 picnic tables to meet city specs. Also, we're at no cost to the city, delivering and offloading the picnic tables, a bicycle rack not yet installed, redid the pathways, created 2 planting beds, irrigation for the beds and trees. The plan was approved by the city, loads of topsoil, mulch, planting beds around trees, plantings including 5 trees, multiple shrubs, and daffodil bulbs. So, from my perspective, I really love the fact that the neighborhood has put this much work into it already before even coming to the city. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Yeah, I'm looking for Mary. She's recused. She said to swim a bar. Thank you. That is unanimous. Thank you. Moving on, now we're going to go. Are there any other notices of motion that anybody wants to put forward to the next meeting? Seeing none, moving on. Liaison reports. We now move into liaison reports in the interest of efficiency. I'd ask the council members keep their updates concise. Is there some way that we can send a note to Mary Beal to announce that she can bring herself out of her margarita bar? Councillor Beal, can you hear me? Welcome back. Thank you. So for the liaison reports, we'll begin with Councillor Martin. Would you like to provide your liaison reports both to the Oceanside Task Force on Homelessness and also the Parksville Downtown Business Association? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This spring, the homeless count was done in most communities in the province. Oceanside's count was done last Wednesday, and the count has not been verified as of today. There will be more audited account properly in the next while. They said they wouldn't have it right away, but it was done last Wednesday in the Oceanside area.
Thank
A
you.
proper account. Also at AVICC, I attended with Mayor O'Brien, a successful housing session for the homeless from the District of Cowichan, you recall. And I'm arranging to see this model with Councillor Beal and 2 other community leaders for Oceanside, just to see this particular housing started in 2016 and it's been 8 years in developing. So it's a successful model. And so I think it's worth our while, at least my while, as a task force person to see physically what it looks like. So that's what I'm trying to arrange with those people, just for a few of us to go down. And so we could just come back and say, this is what it's about, because it was very well presented. And I think you were there, Mayor O'Brien.
I was there.
Yeah, and I just thought it'd be worth my while to have a look, so.
Yes, yeah, that's
Food for thought.
absolutely, yes.
Yeah, that's.
By all means.
So that's for the Homelessness Task Force. For the Parksville Downtown Business Association, they have a new active board of 9, which each board member is taking on or sharing responsibilities. They're very active. The new executive director, Teresa Cooper, and President Tammy Frankfurt have met with several city staff members and Mayor O'Brien too, as I recall. Looking forward to the city events this summer, including the Dance with Me at Memorial. And what I was impressed with was that they all had read the press releases, all the board members. So the press releases are being accepted, and it's not just another mail out, because we get a lot of emails like they do too. So also they have a parking task force and a security and safety task force. And they had a question and they thought, is it possible to have a city staff person on these 2 committees? That's just a question, so put it forward. Does that go in notes? or-
I would suggest at this particular point, Councillor Martin, that you actually send a note to our CAO, the
Okay.
possibilities of that and what that would look like.
See,
But
okay.
as the liaison, you certainly are right to put the question to our CA.
Okay, good.
Yeah, just on your own, and
Yeah,
then,
on my own.
then you can report back.
Good.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank
Yes.
you very much.
Thank you. Counselor Beal.
Thank you, thank you, Mayor O'Brien. First of all, I would like to speak briefly about the Oceanside Community Arts Council, bring in a little update. They're working on their strategic plan. I attended just recently, I guess just 2 weeks ago now. And they have a number of current and ongoing programs, of course, including the Aging Artfully, which is a program for seniors, and it happens both on site at the MAC and also in a number of the seniors' care homes. It's really quite a fantastic program. They also have rotating exhibits on site at the Bayside and also again at the McMillan Arts Center. And they are looking forward to plans for the BC Culture Days in September and also the mosaics. But I want to mention right now that the Community Art Garden project has started. It's going ahead. They were very pleased to announce that in partnership with the PQB Fruit Tree Project, they received a grant through Agriculture Canada Local Food and Infrastructure Fund. And they are breaking ground on a new community art garden beside the McMillan Arts Center. So if you have a chance, go by and have a look. The fencing's in place and it started in earnest. The garden will feature fruit and berry trees. I don't know about berry trees, I guess fruit trees and berry bushes, raised garden beds, picnic tables. It will be wheelchair accessible and a paved pathway meandering through this welcome and creative garden. There will be a greenhouse that will provide a teaching area, a dehydration station, and hydroponic areas to grow produce year-round, and also to host workshops and classes in all things garden, flower arranging, bonsai, herb gardens. And the neighbors, their neighbors and co-owners of the property, Inclusion Parksville, are thrilled to also start programming in this particular area. So that's quite an innovative and interesting addition to our community. And of course, we'll be open for people to see. And if anyone has questions about that. Well, I should also mention that in case people aren't aware, the McMillan Arts Center, it also looks after the bookings for the theater in the park and also for Rock the Park. So if anyone is interested in getting tickets and not sure where to go, you can always contact the MAC, go on the website for the Oceanside Community Arts Center and you can find out more there. And if I can move on to the Chamber of Commerce liaison report. I attended the last meeting, and that was in fact Kim Burden, the outgoing executive director, his last official meeting. And of course, programs and preparations are underway for Canada Day. It's ongoing. And before that, though, the Chamber Business Awards will be coming up, including Citizen of the Year. And this will be it's actually sponsored by the city of Parksville, that particular award, and it will be in memory of the late Joan Lemoyne. And for all who knew her, what a lovely, lovely, lovely citizen in our city. So that will be the Joan Lemoyne Citizen of the Year Award. So those awards are coming up June 15th. Also, I'd like to speak about the advisory design panel. We had an orientation fairly recently. It's a chance to meet the other members of the panel and our very own Blaine Russell, Director of Planning, and another person from planning led the orientation. It was super, super informative. It laid out the purpose and also the limits to this panel. And I see that Councillor Frass is there in person, and also Councillor Grenz, both of whom are part of the Phil St. Luke Standing Committee. So I will leave that update to others. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Beal. For the Phil St. Luke Standing Committee, Councillor Frass.
Yeah, thanks. I don't have much to update on this. We met last week. I think at our next meeting, there'll be a recommendation that was passed there coming forward. So we'll have more at our next meeting. Unless there's something that Councillor Beal put her name down for that one that she wanted to add.
Thank you. I just asked Councillor Grenz, do you have anything to add as another standing committee member? Councillor Beal, do you have anything further to add to the Phil St. Luke Standing Committee update?
Yes, I do think it's helpful to have a few more details shared there. We will be meeting again very soon. I realize that continuing to, works towards creating of a lasting legacy in the form of a statue to commemorate Bill St. Luke. We reviewed and updated the budget, the cost, the fundraising ideas, and there are plans at the upcoming June 9th celebration, which will be held in the park. The hope and the plans are to have some small mementos available for purchase that will help go towards the fundraising. So magnets, stickers, some small items so that they should be accessible and affordable to many. And people will always be welcome to make a larger donation. And speaking of donations, you can get more information by going to a Facebook page, a GoFundMe, but also the Coastal Community Credit Union right here in Parksville will accept donations for this project. That's all I have at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Beal. Any other liaison reports that I don't have listed here that anybody would like to bring up at this time? No, being none. Could I get a mover and a seconder for the adjournment? Councillor Wood, second by Councillor Gore. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.